Hello, everyone. We have discussed forward futures and options, and right now we are going to see um, another derivative product, which is swaps. And actually, swap securities is the uh, mostly used security or instrument in among all the derivative products. Okay, so what is a swap contract? Swap contract. As the name suggests, you can guess swap means to exchange something, right? To uh, change one particular thing with another thing from another person. So again, a swap contract means a contract that exchanges like one contract or one term with another term or another contract. So let me go to my screen. Okay, so in this video, we're going to see the like basic mechanism of swaps. In the second part of the video, or actually video number 6 for derivative theme, we're going to see how to use swap contracts to manage risk, especially for financial institutions. So you see that we have a swap contract, and the swap contract uh, could be based on interest rate, or we could exchange like contracts based on different currencies or foreign exchanges, right? Different currencies, right? So based on interest rate or based on currency. Okay, so we're going to see some simple examples here. So interest rate, we might exchange like the different coupons, right? Different coupon system. So it's based on like different coupons. So maybe one party is having or is paying a fixed rate coupon, right? Fixed rate by issuing a fixed rate debt, while the counterparty is issuing a floating rate debt. So yeah, for certain reasons, they have calculated that internally it would be more profitable for them to exchange, right? So one fixed rate, one floating rate, and it is the best interest for both of them to exchange the obligations, right, or the coupon payments. And might also this might also include the principal payment. So it could be like an exchange of coupon payments only, or even both, coupon payment plus the principal payment. So interest plus principal or only interest payment. And another possible type is based on basis swap. So maybe both of them uh, are using like floating rate payment. So both of them are not fixed rate debts, right? But again, both of them are floating rate debts. But maybe each of them doesn't like the basis on which it is paying the floating rate payment. Right? You could imagine maybe uh, one company has, for some reasons, issued a bond uh, whose payment is based on like gold price. Right? Actually, the company doesn't like it. Right? Maybe because it's not, or is abandoning maybe the mining business or something like that. On the other hand, maybe another company has issued debt on the basis of or whose payment is based on um, maybe S&P 500 index, and it turns out that the company is going more into European business, so it doesn't like the debt that it has issued. So you see, maybe this first party or first business likes the other company's debt more, right? The basis on which the payment would be made, and vice versa, right? The other company likes the debt tied to gold price or gold index or something like that. So they could exchange their obligations, right? Their debts because of the different basis on which their payments would be made. Right? So yeah, there are maybe other possibilities, but at least we see like coupon swap or basis swap, right, for the interest rate swaps. And the second one, of course, currency. And this is easy to imagine. We will see one or two examples today. Uh, Maybe you are from a company that wants to go to another region, right, another part of the world. On the other hand, a company from that part of the world wants to come to your country, and basically you could make an exchange of like obligations, right, or debt issuance that would benefit both parties. Okay, so let's see the first one, interest rate swaps. Okay, so why is that that swaps become like the first or the like, mostly used derivative products compared to forward or futures and options? The answer is very simple because swaps or swap contracts are very flexible, right? Very flexible, and uh, like different from the conventional wisdom. We'll see that swaps actually could facilitate the an exchange or exchanges between two parties that don't have the same standing. This is very interesting, right? We see like in any conventional wisdom, we'll find that the normal practice, right, in business or even in our daily life, uh, that postulates uh, that an exchange could only happen between like two entities with the same standing, right? So this is very common, right? Even in daily life, in friendship, in courtship, maybe even in marriage, right? Uh, uh, Many families, many people will assume that to make like harmonious and synchronous uh, like union, then the both entities or both parties involved should have the same standing. So swap contracts show that this might not be true, right? In the what's that in the derivative mechanism, and that makes it very flexible and very wonderful to use. That's why it has become like the mostly used or uh, uh, derivative instruments in hedging, like in risk management field, right? Okay, so let's see an example now. Let's assume that we have like two simple companies, right? So the first company has triple A rating, so triple A rating, and the second company is having like a triple B rating. So without me telling you further, you could feel the different ratings that they have, right? The triple A rating is definitely better than the triple B firm. Okay, so now let's imagine that if the triple A firm wants to borrow money using the fixed rate debt, then it has to pay let's say 7%. Okay? And on the other hand, if the triple B wants to borrow money in the fixed rate debt, you'll have to pay 8.5% per year. Right? Easy to imagine. A triple A firm has a better standing, right? Has a better rating, thus paying or thus having to pay a lower fixed rate, fixed interest rate uh, if it decides to issue a fixed rate debt. And if both companies that decide to issue floating rate debts, the AAA firm has to pay, say, uh, maybe LIBOR plus half, okay? And triple B firm has to pay LIBOR uh, plus, or maybe make it, maybe for the fixed rate firm, they'll have to pay LIBOR only, and this one, LIBOR plus half. Okay, quite makes sense, right? So what is LIBOR again? London Interbank Offered Rate. So this is the uh, interbank interest rate, right? Denominated in US dollar in London. Right? So the what's that? It's simply like interest rate on US dollar denominated debt, right, or borrowing in London. Right? That's what we call it, London Interbank Offered Rate. Right? So if this is for another city, then the name would change following the city's name. For example, in Singapore, this would be SIBOR, right? Singapore Interbank Offered Rate, uh, meaning that that is the interest rate on a US dollar denominated debt in Singapore. So what about TIBOR, right? Tokyo Interbank Offered Rate? That would be the interest rate on a US dollar denominated debt in Tokyo. Right. So it's not our focus today, but yeah, you can read further, maybe on Google or somewhere else. Okay, so think about this, triple A and triple B. So again, according to the conventional wisdom, this would be very difficult for both firms to actually to exchange anything, because the first firm is having a triple A rating, whereas the second firm is having a triple B rating. So again, according to the common thought, this would be quite hard to have something in common or to exchange their obligations. But again, this is the beauty of swap contracts. So we'll see how the swap contracts actually could facilitate both parties, and the exchange could benefit both companies. So what should we do now? So we have to harness a concept, right? The concept that is initially postulated by David Ricardo. What is that? It's a comparative advantage concept, right? Comparative advantage. Remember that Adam Smith, uh, in the earlier period, had postulated the absolute advantage concept, right? Advantage. So some years later, David Ricardo postulated the comparative advantage theory, right? So comparative advantage theory is very simple, right? If two countries or two companies or anything turn out to be having more advantageous position in both things, then it will be still useful for the country or the company that has uh, more advantageous positions in everything to choose the best advantage that they have, right? So let me give you a simple example. Let's say uh, one person is the CEO, right? And another person is his or her secretary, right? So one is the CEO and the other one is a secretary. So it turns out that let's use a simple example, okay? There are two activities, right? Two activities. So the CEO is supposed to make strategic decisions, right? And also there's another activity, which is to uh, write a letter or write letters, right? Or type letters, right? So it turns out that in both activities, actually the CEO is better than his or her secretary. So both making strategic decisions and also even typing letters or making letters, right? The CEO turns out to be better than the secretary. However, if you think about it, based on the comparative advantage theory, the CEO had better focus on making strategic decisions, whereas the secretary had better focus on uh, making letters or writing letters. Why? Because making strategic decisions has a higher value for the CEO, right? Although, again, right? Although he or she is better at making strategic decisions and also making letters, but no, it's uh, for the best interest for him or her that the CEO is focused on making strategic decisions rather than on making letters, right? And on the other hand, right, for the secretary, although well, although this secretary is worse off uh, in making strategic decisions and also writing letters, but the you see right the worst off position is less severe for the case of making letters. Okay, so we'll apply the concept here. You see, both for a fixed rate debts and floating rate debt, the triple A firm will have a better, what's that, a better term, right? Because the triple A firm is better than triple B firm in terms of the rating. So in both types of debts, triple A firm will always have a better term. But if we calculate the difference of the terms, right? So triple A is having 1.5% advantage here. And on the other hand, for the floating rate debt, triple A firm is better or is better off by 0.5% only, right? Agree, right? So you see, right? Both types of debts, the triple A firm is better off, right? But the better off position is much higher at the fixed rate debt, right? And on the other hand, the worst off position of the triple B firm is more minimum at the floating rate debt. So what was the meaning here? So it's better for the triple A firm to issue this one because the competitive or the comparative advantage is higher, right, for the triple A firm, right? And here the comparative disadvantage is lower for the triple B firm. Okay, so this is I think it's very easy to imagine. So triple A firm has had better issue the fixed rate debt and give it to triple B firm, and on the other hand, the triple B firm had better issue the floating rate debt and then exchange it or transfer it to the triple A firm. So let's uh, draw the situation now. This is triple A firm. Okay, so it's better that triple A firm borrow money from uh, issuing a fixed rate debt, right? Okay, fixed rate debt. It borrows money, okay, and triple A firm has to pay. How much is that again? Triple A firm has to pay 7%, right? Okay, so 7%. So triple A firm had better issue the fixed rate debt, right? Fixed rate bond, and you have to pay like 7% a year. However, again, because we want to find like mutual interest or mutual benefits for both firms, and the fixed rate debt is transferred right to the triple B firm. So essentially, triple A firm is telling the triple B firm, okay, now I have issued the fixed rate debt. Please pay for it. Please pay for it, right? So here, because of the what's that? Because of the different ratings, the triple A firm will have a higher bargaining power, right? A higher bargaining position. So it might ask the triple B firm to pay more, slightly more, right, to gain the benefit there. So maybe triple B firm is asked to pay, yeah, based on negotiation or based on the get the mutual benefit, maybe 7.35. Okay, 7.35, and in case both parties need an investment bank in the middle. This is a very, very common case. We have an investment bank in the middle, the Citibank or yeah, any bank, right? Standard Chartered or anything. So the investment bank might charge something, right? Like trading fee or intermediary fee or anything. And from the investment bank to the AAA firm, it might end up with like 7.1 or 7.2. Let's say 7.25, okay? Okay, so again, a AAA firm has issued a fixed rate debt, and now the debt is the debt of the bond is given to triple B, so triple B has to pay for it, right? But because of the higher negotiation power or higher bargaining power, the AAA firm might be able to ask the triple B firm to pay slightly more, maybe 735 or 725. 735, and uh, if the transaction has like an intermediary, which is an investment bank, then most likely the investment bank will cut a little bit, right? Maybe 0.1% or 0.2%. What about the triple B firm? So you see, based on our analysis above, right? Triple B firm had better issue the floating rate bond, right? Floating rate debt, because the comparative disadvantage is minimum when it issues the floating rate debt, right? So this would be what floating rate debt, right? And for issuing this type of debt or bond, the triple B firm has to pay, yeah, LIBOR plus 0.5% a year. LIBOR plus 0.5% per year, okay? And of course, this floating rate debt will be transferred to the AAA firm. So essentially, a triple B firm will tell the AAA firm, okay, now I've issued this bond, I give it to you, and you have to fulfill the obligation, right? The uh, especially the interest payment obligation. But again, here, the AAA firm has a higher bargaining power, right? So there's a possibility that the AAA firm uh, doesn't want to pay LIBOR plus half. Or maybe the AAA firm only wants to pay what? LIBOR, right? LIBOR. So see here, AAA firm only wants to pay LIBOR. This is based on negotiation and of course the uh, a mutual benefit for both, right? This could be like negotiated and calculated together, and the investment bank will uh, send the payment to the triple B, right? Okay, so again, for the case of triple B, it has to issue the floating rate debt at LIBOR plus 0.5%, right? But triple A firm might say to the triple B firm that it doesn't want to pay LIBOR plus half, but it only wants to pay LIBOR only, because you see what's the logic here? The triple A firm is telling the triple B firm, right? If if I issue the floating rate debt or bond by myself, then I would have to pay only LIBOR, right? Why should I pay LIBOR plus half, right? Even if we want to exchange something. So most likely the triple A firm uh, will negotiate or will be persistently asking for LIBOR payment only instead of LIBOR plus half, right? So the triple B will issue the debt or bond and pays LIBOR plus 0.5%, right? But when the debt is transferred to triple A firm, the triple A firm is willing to pay only LIBOR, right? Because again, it could say that if it has to issue the floating rate debt by itself, it will only have to pay LIBOR instead of LIBOR plus half. Right? But let's calculate now what will happen to both of them. So for the AAA firm, okay, AAA firm, uh, it will issue the fixed rate debt and will pay 7%, right? And the fixed rate debt is immediately transferred to the triple B firm. So triple B firm will pay, how much is that again? 735. Okay, and the 735 will be received by triple A firm. Okay, now triple B firm will issue the floating rate debt at LIBOR plus half. So it will pay like LIBOR plus half. And immediately the floating rate debt is transferred to the AAA, and the AAA will have to pay what? LIBOR only, right? LIBOR, because of the, again, the higher bargaining power. I could say that uh, if we issue the bond or the debt by ourselves, then we'll have to pay only LIBOR. So AAA is willing to pay LIBOR only. Okay, so here LIBOR would be received by triple B firm. Okay, so if we add all things together, so how much is it? This would be plus what? 35, right? Would be plus okay, so minus 7, right? Plus the what about 735? So we have what's the difference here? Oh, sorry, a bit I think, oh, we only received like 725 here. Sorry, a bit because of the investment bank, remember? So the triple B will pay 735, but we will receive at 725 only here. Okay, so what will we receive here? So minus LIBOR, right? And then we have the positive 25 plus 25, 0.25. Okay, so if we put it more appropriately, this would, because this is minus, right? And this is plus, you can see here, minus 7 plus 725, so plus 0.25%. So we could write it this way, right? Okay. What about this one? So this is minus LIBOR. Just want to take it out, right? Just minus LIBOR minus 0.5%. You see the brackets there, right? So minus LIBOR minus 0.5%. So plus LIBOR, negative LIBOR. Okay, so now 735 and half. So total would be minus 785%. Okay, so let's look at this, right? Triple A firm ends up with this payment, right? So let's see from the beginning. If it has to issue its own floating rate debt, AAA will have to pay what? LIBOR. See here? LIBOR. Okay, so it's better off, right? Better off for even for the AAA is better off because if it issues uh, its own floating rate firm, it will have to pay LIBOR per year, LIBOR rate per year. Right? But now with a swap contract, it will have to pay LIBOR minus a quarter percent. Better, right? Better off. What about the triple B firm? Triple B firm ends up paying this. Okay, if it has to issue its own fixed rate debt, it will have to pay how much? So 8.5%, right? 8.5%. So uh, this is good for both, right? So where is it again? So triple B firm is also better off, right? Now it ends up paying 7.85% instead of 8.5% if it has to issue its own fixed rate debt or bond. So you see, this is a very, very simple but powerful example to show that the swap contracts are really attractive to any kind of company, right? Of any rating, right? And again, uh, this is not like in line, or this doesn't correspond with the conventional wisdom that says that to join force or to have a union, both parties must have the same standing, right, or similar standing at least. But it shows that even AAA firm could, you know, could exchange things profitably, right, with the triple B firm, and this transaction also brings a lot of benefit to the triple B firm. So both parties are happy with this one. Okay, so this is an example of the interest rate swaps. Uh, we'll continue with the currency swaps. So maybe we'll go straight to examples. So you can imagine the currency swaps. It will be an exchange of obligations denominated in different currencies. So how can it happen? This is a very simple case, right, in the world. I know because of the globalization, this problem uh, has been minimum, right? Or at least has been declining, right? For the last maybe decade or so. So let's see an example here. We have two famous companies in their own countries. Right? Dow Chemical, right? American company, of course. Dow Chemical in the United States, but now they want to go to Europe, right? They want to go to Europe. So you see, uh, in the time past, when you are famous in your country, it might not be the same case if you go to another country. Right? So your reputation might not be as high as it is in your home country, right? So if you go to another country and you borrow money there, um, you might find that the interest rate will be higher than the interest rate for the local companies there. Although you maybe you complain that you have high reputation in your own country, but it doesn't really matter. Right? If you go to another country, maybe you have to start offer your reputation, right, or something like that. And if you go to another country to start the operation, I think this is common sense, and also uh, this is also based on like, experiences of the multinational corporations. Right? It's better to borrow money, maybe partially, or you can say as much as possible from the host country. Why is that so? First, you could hedge against what's that, the foreign exchange risk. Imagine, right? You go to a country, you make production there, You might sell your products there as well. And if your revenues and your costs match, right, you could imagine there, so you have naturally hedged against the currency or foreign exchange risk, right? Because you have to pay the salaries there in the host country currency, right? So you could borrow money there, and you have to pay the interest payment and also the principal payment using the host country's currency, and you are making money there, so they match, right? So you have naturally hedged against the currency risk. And secondly, this is also important, maybe not as crucial than it was in the past, uh, but they might still happen in some countries. If you go to one country and assume that you borrow money from your home country's banks, right? You borrow a lot of money at home, and then you go to another country and you start operating, and unbeknownst to you, unbeknownst to everyone, the regime changes, right? So the previous regime has been toppled by a new regime, and the new regime might not like your company, might not like you, and uh, maybe your operation is having a severe time, right? Uh, Not good relationship with the government, or even in the worst case, maybe your business would be nationalized, right? Maybe might be expropriated, right? So uh, this is not unheard of, right? Even in today's world or in modern times. Of course, the extent is less and less, but this might still happen in some countries. So no, your company might be expropriated or might be nationalized, or some extreme thing such as that happens. So if you borrow a lot of money from the host country, or from the host country's banks or bond market or anything, then you could walk away quite, of course, still not happy, right? You're still not happy, but at least you could minimize the potential losses because of the expropriation. Right? You could imagine, right? You go there, you borrow a lot of money from there, not from your home country, but from the host country. As if something happens to the operations there, your business is expropriated or anything, of course you walk away, right? You are unhappy, but again, the loss could be at least minimized, right? Because you just you just walk away, and basically the host country is expropriating assets borrowed or using debt financing from its own financial institutions or its own bond market. So at least you could minimize your uh, potential hazard, potential problems there. Right? Okay, and another firm, French tire manufacturer Michelin, right? The company Michelin is going to the US. So you see that they have that reverse uh, destination there. So Dow Chemical, an American company, is going to Europe, right? And on the other hand, Michelin, a European company, a French company, is going to the United States to start its operation, right? So let's suppose that both won an equivalent 200 million, right? $200 million. So both want to have fixed rate debt, right? Fixed rate bond or fixed rate debt for 10 years. Here's the thing, right? If Dow Chemical borrows at home, right, in the United States, it could borrow what 7.5%, right? 7.5%. But if it goes to Europe and borrow there, it will have to pay 8.25. So let's write it down here. So for the Dow, so if it borrows money, right, fixed rate in the US, he will have to pay 7.5. But if it borrows money in Europe, you have to pay 825. Of course, right? You can see the logic, right? So although Dow Chemical is like a well-known company in the United States, but if it goes to Europe, again, reputation might not uh, might not be as high as it is at home, right? So you have to pay 825. Uh, and for Michelin, okay, Michelin, if it goes to the United States to borrow money, it will have to pay 7.7. Yep. And if it decides to borrow money in Europe, you will have to pay 8.1. See, this is like a clear picture, right? So in the United States, Dow has, let's say both of them have the same like standing, the same rating, right? In their respective countries. But you see, right, Dow is more well known, right, in the United States. So if both of them issue debts in the United States, Dow will have to pay 7.5, whereas Michelin has to pay 7.7. On the other hand, if they do it in Europe, Michelin has a higher reputation there, although again, both of them have the same standings and ratings, right? But of course, Michelin as a European company has a higher reputation there. So you have to pay 8.1, and Dow will have to pay 825 in Europe. So based on again mutual benefits, right, mutual interest, and to avoid or to minimize the again the what's that political risk or uh, operational risk, right, by going to another part of the world. So it's better that Dow borrow money in the United States, whereas Michelin borrows money in France or in Europe, right? And then they exchange their obligations, right? And we'll see how it works here. Okay, so they want to let's say they decide to borrow money in their respective countries, right? So Dow will borrow money in the United States and pay what 7.5, and Michelin will borrow in Europe by paying 8.1, and they exchange their obligations, right? They exchange their obligations, and both of them need how much again? 200 million, right? $200 million equivalent. Okay, so the spot rate right now is 110. Let's assume that the spot rate is 110. So how much is it? So $200 million at 110 euros per dollar. So we multiply, right? We multiply them and we get 220 million euros. Okay, so this is just an example. Okay, so $200 million at a spot rate of 110 euros per dollar. So you see, we multiply them and we get 220 euros. So $200 million and or 220 million euros. Right? And then Dow Chemical will borrow at home, right, in the United States and pay 7.5. So 7.5% of 200 million is this one, right? 15 million. Okay, Dow Chemical has to pay interest payment of $15 million every year for the next 10 years. And of course, the principal is 200 million, right? And Michelin will have to borrow in Europe and pay 8.1%, right? So 8.1% of 220 million euros is 17.8 million euros per year for the next 10 years. And again, the principal is, of course, 220 million euros. So let's see now, they could happily exchange their obligations, right? So Dow Chemical will borrow 200 million, okay? And then we'll give or will transfer the debt to Michelin, right? Okay, and then every year, uh, because of the exchange, Michelin will have to pay how much again? Uh, yeah, 15 million, right? 15 million every year will be paid by, yeah, this one, right? See, Michelin will pay $15 million per year for 10 years. Okay, so and then the Dow will repay the interest payment, right, to bondholders, to financial institutions or anything, right? And at the end, of course, Michelin will have to repay the principal, right? And the payment will be uh, followed out by Dow Chemical to the bondholders or the financial institutions. Okay, so what about the Michelin? So Michelin will borrow at home, right? Will borrow at home at 220 million euros will be borrowed in Europe, and this amount will be proceeded to Dow, right? So this one, 220 million. So Dow will receive the 220 million euros from Michelin. And of course, for the next 10 years, Dow has to pay the interest payment of this much, right? 17.8 million euros for the next 10 years, right? So Dow will pay the 17.8 million euros, and this would be proceeded by the Michelin to its bondholders or financial institutions, right? And at the end, of course, Dow has to repay the principal. And again, this payment would be proceeded by Michelin to the debt holders. Okay, so everybody is happy. So uh, Dow Chemical ends up having this cost of borrowing, right? 8.1%. And Michelin ends up paying 7.5%. See here? So Michelin, right, if it has to borrow money by itself in the United States, they will have to pay 7.7, right? But it ends up paying 7.5 because Dow is borrowing the money and exchange the obligation with Michelin, right? On the other hand, Dow Chemical, if it has to borrow money by itself in Europe, it will have to pay 8.25, right? Uh, but because Michelin borrows the money in Europe and exchange the obligation with Dow, so Dow ends up paying only 8.1% per year. So both are happy, right? Both parties are happy. Okay, so what about if we have like a combined case, right? Currency plus interest rate swaps, right? This could happen also. We see we continue the example, except that now Dow will borrow fixed rate and Michelin will borrow floating rate. Okay, so similar example, but now Dow will or Dow prefers to borrow a fixed rate debt in the United States. And on the other hand, Michelin prefers to borrow a floating rate debt in euro, and then they exchange their obligations, right? So what's happening now? Again, the Dow will start borrowing 200 million, right? 200 million. Then this is given to Michelin, right? And because of the fixed rate debt, uh, Dow's obligation would be what, 7.5% for the next 10 years for the interest payment, right? But this obligation would be fulfilled by Michelin, right? So they will pay it here, okay? And then, of course, at the end, Michelin will have to repay the principal of 200 million, right? And this will be proceeded by Dow to the debt holders. What about the now the floating rate debt issued by Michelin? So Michelin will borrow 220 million euros, right? Similar case from the previous one. again, this amount would be given to Dow. Now for the next 10 years, Michelin will have to pay LIBOR plus 1/8%. So LIBOR plus 0.125, right? But again, this obligation would be assumed or fulfilled by Dow. So Dow will pay LIBOR plus 0.125 for the next 10 years, right? And the payment would be proceeded by Michelin to its debt holders. And at the end, of course, Dow will have to pay, will repay the principal payment of 220 million euros. And again, this payment would be given by Michelin to its debt holders. Right? So Dow ends up paying this, right? LIBOR plus 0.125, and Michelin ends up paying 7.5% by the swap transaction or the swap contract. So this is a combination between interest rate and currency swaps. Right? And in real life, you can see that the swap transactions could prevail among many institutions or many entities, right? So, for example, we swap one transaction with an Australian bank, and we could use the same transaction or the same swap obligation with another company, right, and so forth. So it's a complex system, but it's beautiful because, again, I think the most beautiful thing about swaps or swap contracts is that we could swap or we could exchange any contracts or any obligations with any entities from different ratings, right, or different standings, right? Something that could not be couldn't be imagined using the conventional wisdom, right? Okay, so I think that's about the basic concepts of swap contracts. And in our next video, we'll see how to use the swap contracts to hedge against risk, right? Especially for financial institutions, we show more micro hedging and macro hedging using the swap contracts. Uh, I think that's all for today for the basic concepts about swaps. Thank you very much for your attention and see you again in our next videos. Bye.